All right, Nick, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs as the draft has passed us, as undrafted free agency is pretty much done, and we have gone through a rookie minicamp. We're starting to look and see what young players these teams value, who do they value, and how are they going about showing that. And there's one recent move the Chiefs have made that shows there's a player in particular that they love and we love as well. And I think Chiefs fans, once you hear this, you're going to love him too. I think it's a big move for the Chiefs, and it's going to bring a lot to this team going forward. We'll jump into that in just a second here. But first, I'm Andrew. That's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, the Kansas City Chiefs have added a player to this team that they seem to really like, and there's one move in particular that they really like him, and they're starting to make room for him on this roster. Let's get into the article, and we can talk more about it on the other side. This, again, the first part is from SI.com, and it says, talking about running back Brashard Smith, who the Chiefs selected as their last pick in the 7th round. This first part, just talking about why they like him and how much they, favor this player. It says, we had him higher on our board than where we took him, said Ryan Nutt, the Chiefs director of player personnel. That's when you start to consider trading, when a guy is there and you have him higher on your board, and what we could give up is peanuts compared to what we think we'll get. Our coaches are super excited about this kid, talking about Smith, and they will find ways to get this kid on the field, whether it's a third down role, an all down role, whatever they decide, this kid will play. We're talking about a 7th round pick here, and we're talking about a guy in the Chiefs front office saying, this is a guy that's going to get on the field. We value him highly. Obviously, they traded up to get him in the 7th round, which he said they gave up nothing in comparison to what they think that this guy can bring. So I think that's really important here, but it goes further than them saying this guy's going to play. This next part is from the Yard Barker, and it says Kansas City Chiefs selected SMU running back Brashard Smith in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL draft, and after trading up with New England to get him, to make room for the rookie, the team cut one of their running backs, veteran Keontae Ingram. So that shows, again, this is a Chiefs team now making roster decisions to keep this 7th round rookie Brashard Smith. They're cutting a veteran, a guy who admittedly didn't play a ton for them. He got on the field intermittently, but that's what they're looking at Brashard Smith. I don't think all at once he's going to be, the starting running back for this team, but I think he has a role on this team, and we'll get to that in a second. But I think it's important here that they're already cutting a veteran running back to make room to keep Brashard Smith on the roster, to keep this running back room the way that they like it, and that includes Smith. So I think that's really, really interesting there. But when we talk about what this guy brings to the team and how he can help out the Chiefs, I think it's a lot, and I think he brings a lot to the table. Let's get into this graph here, and then we'll explain a little bit more of what I'm talking about. And this here is a graph comparing Brashard Smith to the rest of the Chiefs running back room, and I'm talking about the starters, Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco here. And the first part, it looks at their receiving grade, because that is one of the biggest benefits of Smith, a guy who is a wide receiver who turned into a running back. He's an incredible receiver. He brings a lot to the table in that aspect. And you look at his receiving grade last year, 90 overall PFF receiving grade, compared to Kareem Hunt, who was somewhere a little bit above a 60, like 62. Then you look at Isaiah Pacheco, worse than that, about a 54 receiving grade for him per PFF. Those grades are okay. Nothing like a 90, which is insane for a running back, a guy Brashard Smith, to be able to, have a 90 receiving grade. Shows that he actually was a wide receiver. He had great hands. So I think that's really important. That's a great aspect he brings to this backfield. Another place that he brings in a lot of good versatility is 10-plus yard runs, explosive plays. This shows that Smith can be that guy where you throw him in, he can do a lot of great stuff. He had about 35 10-plus yard runs last season. We look at Kareem Hunt. He had about half of that and had been right about 15 10-plus yard runs. And Isaiah Pacheco, although battled through injury, really didn't do a whole lot to write home. Had about 6 10-plus yard runs that season. And then finally, let's look at their longest runs and yards, just to give an example of, does this guy have the breakaway speed to be a home run hitter? Is it just 10 yards and then he gets taken down? Or is he able to take it all the way? And you look, this guy definitely does. He had a 70-plus yard run this season, compared to Kareem Hunt, who had about a 20-yard run, compared to Isaiah Pacheco, who had about a 35-yard run. So this guy can do it all. He can receive, he can make big plays with his legs, be explosive, 10 plus yard runs, but also he can continue those 10 plus yard runs even longer, all the way up to 70 yards as he did last year. So I think this is a guy who adds a lot to the running back room. I think Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco are very physical, very powerful runners, can really hit the hole hard and do a lot of good things in that aspect. But this guy brings that spark that they were looking for. He helps in the receiving game a ton, and he can be a home run hitter when needed. So I think this guy's going to get on the field early, like they said. He's going to get on the field often, and he's going to add a lot of value to this Chiefs team. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But before we get to you, Chiefs fans, in the comment section below, we're talking about this new look running back room. We're talking about, what is going to see. What do you think Brashard Smith should do? Do you think this is a guy that should maybe take over a lion's share of the running back snaps? Do you think that he could be the future, the next 7th-round draft pick to come in and reshape this Chiefs running back room like Pacheco did before him? Or do you think this is a guy you'd rather see him on third down rolls, intermittently splash throughout? Let us know, what are your thoughts? How do you think this guy should mix into the plan here in the comment section below? But nonetheless, Nick, what do you think about this latest move for the Chiefs?
Yeah, so it's clear that the Chiefs were impressed by Smith during the draft process, but I think it's clear to say that they were impressed by him during rookie minicamp. And let me explain exactly why. When it comes to these kind of moves, they don't happen in a vacuum. You got to look at the context, you got to look at the timing. So obviously the Chiefs like Smith through the evaluation process enough. They traded up to get him in the 7th round. Then you have rookie minicamp, the 3rd through the 5th of May. And that's when they see Smith in person, they talk to him, they see him in a first official capacity as a Kansas City Chiefs player. Prior to that, it was just sort of interviews, evaluating tape, talking to him, trying to think about what could he be. And then they had a few days where they saw what he actually is and will be for the Kansas City Chiefs. And now you fast forward a few days and they release Ingram. They waive Ingram. Now, look, of course, we know Ingram had some injury issues and things like that. But let's be totally honest here. This is May, right? It's not like we're going up against the cut deadline at the end of September. This is the time of year where teams will just completely fill up their roster across the board with 9, 11 receivers, 6, 7 running backs, like 23,000 offensive linemen, it seems, right? Just to have a full stable of camp bodies, right? That's where that term comes from, to get through training camp so you can evaluate every single position, whether it's with rookies or veterans. And a lot of teams actually like to add veteran running backs to be like their 4th, 5th running back as sort of a camp body, just because he knows how to pass protect. He knows the scheme. He can sort of execute an NFL offense, so you can at worst evaluate the rest of the players around them. But the Chiefs took a different approach. They moved off of the veteran and they're relying solely on Smith, who's currently slated to be the 4th running back. Why are they doing this? It's because they looked at him in rookie minicamp and they said, yeah, this guy is as good or better than we thought he was, right? We see him in person. We're talking to him in person, getting him to structure the offense. He is clearly going to play a big role for us. So they wanted to clear the deck, right? They wanted to remove any obstacles for getting Brashard Smith as many reps as possible during training camp, during the preseason. Because if you look at the Chiefs roster, right, obviously Pacheco is going to get almost no, he's going to get just enough reps to stay fresh, but he's not going to get a lot of action during the training camp, during preseason, especially with his injury concerns. You look at, of course, at Elijah Mitchell, and like he's going to get some carries too during training camp, things like that, but he's got some injury concerns. They're not going to want to overload him. And then Kareem Hunt, he's obviously a veteran. They may give him nothing, right, just to, again, avoid the injuries. What does that mean? It means Smith is going to get a whole lot of action, a whole lot of evaluation. And I think the Chiefs moving off of Ingram and strickling with Smith at this point as their 4th running back or whatever role they're going to see him in was a way to clear the deck so that way he could get fully up to speed, right? They're basically going to use training camp and preseason to prepare Brashard Smith for the regular season to be an impact player. And this is totally antithetical to how the Chiefs usually operate, right? Over the past few years, the Chiefs have always been about bringing in veterans, right? We're like, hey, we're in the middle of a title run. We got rookies we like, developmental guys. We look at, of course, the young tackle, Sua Mata'ia, rolled with him for a little bit, but we're very quick to replace him to a veteran just because, like, we like the rookies. We're going to develop you. You're going to be a player eventually, but we're going to have a veteran start in the interim, right? That's basically how the Chiefs have operated the past 2 or 3 years. To me, it's very interesting that they took the exact opposite approach here when it comes to Brashard Smith. I think, to me, it's a sign that they think he's a great player and that what they saw in rookie minicamp, which is usually a whole lot of, very little, to be blunt, But I think there's something they saw with Smith over those 3 days where they were like, yeah, this kid, this prospect, he is exactly who we thought he is. He's going to be a playmaker for us. Now, I don't know what role the Chiefs are going to use him in explicitly, right? This is a former wide receiver. He's a big play guy, just a dynamic weapon. He's got the special teams aspect. Who knows what the Chiefs will do to him? Maybe the Chiefs don't even know yet. I think that's maybe potentially even part of it. They're trying to clear the deck so that way they can evaluate him at a bunch of different opportunities across the board during training camp in the preseason. But wherever he will be used, and he will be used, it's clear the Kansas City Chiefs were impressed by Brashard Smith through the process and through rookie minicamp and are clearing the deck to give him a great opportunity to play early and often in 2025.
Yeah, Nick, and I think you bring up a good point as, how's he fit into this team? I think they're evaluating him, showing him. But I think what they're also doing is in selecting a guy like Brashard Smith is trying to prepare for the future of this team whenever they have, Travis Kelsey inevitably retire. Kelsey being a big play guy for this team, in the past, he's been very versatile. He's one of those guys where he lines up on the field and you don't exactly know, is he going to be a blocker? Is he going to go out for a pass and catch something and make a big play like that? Having one of those mismatch kind of players on the field, they don't really have one of those if you take Kelsey out of the picture. And Kelsey, arguably getting older, I don't even know how much of a guy like that he is anymore. And we talk about mismatch players, guys, when they come out in the field, you don't know what they're going to do. Really, it messes up the defense. They can't game plan. So Patrick Mahomes, obviously, guy you can't game plan for, but everyone else is kind of similar. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, they're just speed guys. They're quick. They do good stuff, but they're one dimensional in that aspect. Brashard Smith, he's quick. He's a home run hitter on his feet. They could hand him the ball in the backfield. He could get a quick, zone read. He could get something, get a crease in the defense, pop a 10-yard run, pop a 70-yard run, whatever the case is, or line up as wide receiver because he's actually one of the best graded, receiving running backs that PFF has ever seen in, I'd say, the past decade. So this guy, great route runner, great receiver. I think he's one of those players, you put him on the field, he kind of breaks the defense a little bit. You don't know if he's going to catch. You don't know if he's going to check out wide to be a wide receiver. You don't know if he's going to be a running back. Probably not going to pass protect. You don't really need to worry about that aspect. But this is a guy that, again, puts a little bit more math into the Chiefs' offensive algorithm for the defense to read. Makes it a little bit more difficult to have a player like Brashard Smith on your team. You got to be prepared. You got to game plan a little bit more. It makes this Chiefs team a little bit less one-dimensional. So I think that's an important aspect. Is this guy going to come in and completely break the game wide open day one? I don't know. He could, but I don't think that's likely. But what it does is it makes things a little bit harder as the Chiefs transition into the out years after Travis Kelsey. It makes things a little bit more complicated, and I think it'll make this Chiefs offense more effective.
You bring up an outstanding point, right? Travis Kelsey, obviously he's a future Hall of Famer. He's fantastic, but he was, for the most of his career, was the best big play receiving tight end we've seen in NFL history, right? You go back to 2020, which 5 years ago, right? Not too long ago, he was averaging 14 yards per reception. As early as 2 years ago, he was still averaging 12 and a half yards per reception, a little over 12. So again, he's been a big play receiving tight end, but last season he averaged only 8.5 yards per reception. So his big play element as he gets older, and it happens to everyone, has dropped dramatically. So that versatility, that weapon aspect, a guy who on a single play, like you alluded to, he could be a blocker, he could chip, he could be a check down, or he could be a big play threat down the seam of any opposing defense. A lot of that big play element has started going away. And we've seen teams, and especially it reared its ugly head in the Super Bowl against Philadelphia, teams kind of recognize that, hey, listen, on the outside, they got some playmakers. They got guys like Worthy, but that sort of Jack, guy who can play all over the place, that Swiss Army knife, so to speak, that can line up anywhere. He could catch the ball. He could run out of the backfield. He could be a slot receiver. He could line up in the backfield. Could just be a weapon to move all over the board, a chess piece. That has gone as Kelsey has gotten older, right? That was sort of the hidden gem element of Kelsey's game. As great as he is in so many other areas, he was just something that could be moved all over the place all of the time. I think Smith is a guy, and you brought this up, I think it's a great point, that can be sort of the next generation of that, because he is sort of if people remember Tony Pollard, running back for Tennessee Titans, formerly the Dallas Cowboys, when Pollard was coming out of Memphis, he had a very similar pedigree to Smith. Converted wide receiver, great playmaker, great return game element. Went to the Cowboys, became a Pro Bowler, did a lot of good things for Tennessee, admittedly on a very bad Titans team last year. I think Smith falls that same role, right? Is he going to be the next Derrick Henry? No, of course, absolutely not. But can he be an elite playmaker that can do so many things where he can line up out wide, line up in the slot, line up third down running back, can carry the football out of the gun, can carry the football when quarterback's under center. He can do a lot of different things and be a big playmaker every single step of the way. I think he's going to be a great addition to this Kansas City Chiefs offense. I think the big thing for him is, and you kind of alluded to here in terms of pass protection, is getting up to speed on an NFL offense, the Chiefs offense, getting mentally prepared. That's why I think the Chiefs are clearing the deck. They're saying, listen, this is big on you, training camp and preseason, to get mentally prepared, because we're going to need you as kind of our weapon X during the regular season. And if Smith can be ready, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when Brashard becomes an elite playmaker for this Kansas City offense.